Well, hey there, and welcome to the YouSchool's Critical Foundations podcast. The way this works is that every week we're going to cover a different, what we would call a critical question for life. Now, these critical questions are the 30 questions that we've discovered that everybody has to answer in order to build a meaningful life. And there's 3 pillars to a meaningful life. These aren't going to be new or novel to you probably, but it's this. It's to have a clear identity, a defined purpose, and strong, healthy relationships, identity, purpose, and belonging. And if you have those 3 pillars, you're on your way to put together a life that matters, that you would say is fulfilling, satisfying, and meaningful to the world. And the way to find those 3 things, to get to those 3 pillars, is to wrestle and answer these 30 critical questions. So every week, we're going to present a different question. And in one episode, like this one, I'm going to share the background to this question, why it's important, where it comes from, and how to answer it. And in the second week, we're going to bring on a guest, and we're going to share how to respond to that question by essentially a live discussion. You're going to watch how it goes, the process. You're going to see somebody, friends of mine, friends of YouSchool, interesting people doing cool things in the world, and we're going to actually kind of like live coach them through that particular question. So I'm not asking anybody to come to these episodes with clear answers. We're actually, I prefer if they're not sure, so you can see and watch what it looks like to really find clarity to these questions. The first one we're going to talk about is, and I'm going to say this every time, maybe the most important one. This is maybe one of the most critical questions that everybody needs to answer, whether you're a high school student, you're a parent, you're a teacher, you're a transitioning veteran, you're a 29-year-old working in a job, not sure if this is your job for life, you're thinking about getting married. If you're in a transition in life, this is one of the questions that everybody needs to answer. I've had many transition inflection points in my life, but one sticks out. It was graduating college. And at that point, I had a very clear sense that the tracks that I've been on are finally ending. And I had to figure out life for myself. And that meant career, it meant relationships, it meant where was I going to live? How was I going to support myself? All those big life adult questions. And I had a strong, deep sense of panic and anxiety about that. Because my prediction for where I was going, the path that I was on, you might even call this inertia. Inertia, you remember this from high school? And hey, I was an accounting major, so don't hold me to this, but inertia, Newton's first law of motion. And you can almost probably finish the sentence here. An object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and the same direction unless acted upon by another outside force. Inertia. I was panicked by the inertia of my life, where I was headed in terms of a career, where I was going in terms of who I would be in 10, 15, 20 years was not the person I wanted to be. It was not the life I wanted to live. Another version of that would be, it's not the story I wanted to tell. And as a senior in college, I had a close to a breakdown because I couldn't figure out how to put it all together, which is really the backdrop and origin story of YouSchool. If there was a roadmap to figure out step by step how to put a life together that was meaningful, I would have done anything to get it. Because the inertia that I was experiencing, the trajectory I was on, was not the path I wanted to live. And that happens to everybody. When we get to an inflection moment, a transition point, and we're not sure, for everyone, there's so much risk and danger involved in that. I might make the wrong choice. I might go down a path I regret. I might make a mistake. I might let people down. I might let myself down. I might miss something, miss out on something. When that happens, when we feel those things, our ability to think clearly just plummets. And what goes up is anxiety and disorientation. And those are states you do not want to make important life decisions through, if that makes sense. But what we found is that by understanding and looking backwards, you can understand more clearly who you are and where you're going. You can understand your future by exploring your past. That's what we're going to cover and talk about in this conversation. How do we do that? How do we understand our backstory so that we can make clear, wise choices? This is a question that's going to come up not just to make decisions, but also in life, in job interviews. You're going to be asked, tell me about yourself. Where do you come from? Maybe in a college application, that's going to be a key part of telling your story. And this is really the conversation we have when we meet someone new, and a new coworker, colleague, and a new neighbor, a new friend. We are asking these types of questions. Tell me about where you come from. So there's a variety of reasons why understanding your backstory is important. Here's a few of them. If you understand and do the work to really unpack and synthesize and make sense of your past, you're going to be able to make sense of what you've been through in your life. And I'm not going to get too far into neuroscience and research we've done, but the way our brains process, store memories from the past, it's actually relatively disorganized. So by going backwards, we can actually integrate these different experiences that we've had, different perspectives, different moments that we've been through, which are kind of disorganized internally, but it's by lifting them up, looking at them, talking about them, thinking about them, we can actually see patterns, experience more healing, emotional health, well-being. We can actually experience moments of insight, which is the integrating past experiences is the foundation for health and wellness. So, we're not going to get too far into it, but it's incredibly profound on the psychological, even a chemical brain level. Additionally, some other here, I'm trying to sell you and why to do this. You'll feel more confident in who you are. You'll be able to see the path that you're on more clearly, which will help you make better choices. You'll see what needs to change, if anything. You can actually increase your gratitude when you look back and realize what you've gone through has shaped you. You can resolve some past hurts, traumas. We'll get into that in future weeks. And also, you will become a more engaging storyteller, which will build healthier, stronger friendships. That's cool. And let me tell you this, because we hear this quite a bit. People come up to me or email and say, "What do I do?" Because I don't really have an interesting backstory. I don't have much. I didn't go through anything traumatic or dramatic. And this is what I've learned. Even the most boring, predictable backstory is still dynamic. It's still worth exploring, and it's worth telling. So I just want to give you that encouragement. Even if you feel like there's nothing back there, there's always more to the story. Now, how do we do this? Really, and you should know this, your backstory is about so much more than where you come from, your biographical data, your hometown, your nuclear family, the schools you went to, the sports you played. It's a combination of actually 4 different elements. Your backstory, when you look backwards and looking at these 4 different elements one at a time will give you a perspective in your past that will help you see things clearly. So here's the first one. It's your foundations. It's your foundations. Foundations are it's the fixed elements of your past, like the neighborhood you grew up in, and the siblings of your family, how that shaped you. It's whether or not even the biology of who you are. These are the fixed parts of your past. It's the DNA that makes you unique. And exploring these foundations, the neighborhood you grew up in, the family you came from, being the middle child, the youngest, the oldest, having a predisposition to this sport or that activity, struggling in this academic area, not that one, taking that lens, that perspective to look back on the foundations. I mean, can you answer this question about your past, the neighborhood that you grew up in? In what ways did that shape and influence who you are and how you see and interact with the world? Now, that alone, that's one small piece of the foundations of your backstory. But even right there, it's ripe with, wow, I mean, I think so. But if you consider it and think about it, I know for me, I grew up in a neighborhood that was very safe. And everywhere I looked, there were very successful people, entrepreneurs, business leaders, very involved parents in their kids' school and athletics. And so I grew up in this very kind of social strong fabric. But as I grew up in the neighborhood, over time, I would hear and we would hear and discover things about families next door and down the street that weren't so. There's the addiction, there's the divorce, there's the scandal, there's the bankruptcy, there's the cheating. And so one amazing great things I learned, and I've always felt safe there and supported by other adults. But there's some shadow stuff there too. The shadow side behind that kind of successful culture. That alone actually has quite depth and richness to what's shaped me in my life. And some of that stuff I carry with me, and some of that stuff I've actively pursued to change. Most of the time, though, you can't change your foundations, right? Your second element of your backstory is the character of who you've been. And I don't mean your character, like, do you show up on time? Do you tell the truth? What I mean is almost like you as a character, as a part of a story. What has that character been like? You're a unique little butterfly. In what ways have you been unique? What's been quirky about you? Were you a Star Wars fan? Were you into sports? Were you artsy? What made you stand out inside of your family or your group of friends? What did people say about you? How did they think about you? What kind of sense of humor did you have? Looking back on that is not self-indulgent or self-centered. It's a way to observe who you've always been. And there might have been key moments, middle school or high school or teenage years, or something that traumatic happened or tragic happened in your life where you see a shift. I used to be this, but now I'm that. Maybe a loss, maybe a heartbreak, maybe a divorce, maybe losing somebody, maybe moving. And they have shifted the way you presented your character, but seeing the elements of the kind of person you've always been will help you have more confidence in who you are and who you've always been. Third element to examine and explore are the key moments of your life, different moments, different inflection points. Again, tragic or celebratory, taking these moments one at a time to look at and not just to recall them and remember them, but to also do some reflection on what did that do for me or to me? What does that say about me? Each one of those moments. When you moved, you met a new friend, you lost someone, you had a breakup, you met a mentor or a teacher, you started a new sport or a new activity. When something happened with your parents, a parent got a new job, a parent lost a job, a sibling was born, a sibling went off to college. These moments have shaped who you are and how you're putting life together. So to move from being unconscious about all that to being aware takes time and some energy. But if you do that work, then you'll start to see the world you're in now much more clearly and have a stronger foundation for who you are in the next moment that you're going to go through. The final and fourth element to really unpack and understand your backstory is what we call your frames, the frames that were handed down to you about how to see big areas of life. Your family primarily gave you these frames, these lenses, these perspectives about life. And life meaning your family taught you what a good family does and is. They taught you and influenced how you see money, or what a good friend is, what a neighbor is like. They gave you a worldview for what the world is like and how you're to participate in your community or in world, global affairs. They taught you about love and life and friendship and money and work, time. So looking at each one of these one by one to see how your family influenced you for how you see things, you can start to recognize, oh my gosh, my family did shape how I see time or money or friendship or family or work or education or race. You start to see these frames, and as part of your backstory, this is where you come from and how it shaped you. And to become aware and conscious of those frames will help you to examine, do those frames work for me? Do I like them? Do they lead me to the place I'm hoping to go? Do they help me become a more virtuous kind, generous, compassionate person, you can actually swap out your frames. You can change the perspectives. You can find other people, other perspectives, other models, other religions that will give you other frames, world historical figures, mentors, friends. And you can bump into another family and spend time with another family and think, wow, I like the way they do holidays a lot better. Or the way they handle money is just so much freer, without anxiety. So understanding, unpacking, and doing the work to reflect on where you come from and what's been handed off to you is so critical. So how do you do this? Let's put it all together. Number one, it starts with trusting that your backstory matters. And if you can get there, and hopefully I gave you a case that will help you at least agree, yeah, that would be important. That would be helpful, whether for you or a kid you love or a kid you work with or a friend that you're helping process through a life transition. To explore your past matters. And always to assume that there's more to the backstory that I'm currently aware of. If you hold those two things, I think it matters, and there's more to what I understand, then those are the two ingredients that will help you explore your backstory in a really productive way. How do you do it? Well, it's relatively simple, actually. You find the right questions, which we can give to you. You do some writing to process your thoughts, and writing can mean paragraphs, it can mean bullet points, it can mean doodling and drawing, but processing your thoughts and memories through pen, pencil, and paper, and there's good research behind that, will help you process and make sense and recall and see things more clearly. So writing things down, writing out your thoughts, talking with people out loud about these things. It might help for you to do that before you write or after you write, depending on your personality. And then listening to other people talk about their past is helpful. You can hear other people talk about their past and think, oh my gosh, I never realized it, but my family was so different, or my upbringing was so uniquely different than yours. You can also ask people that you grew up with, siblings, parents, relatives, friends, old teachers, old mentors. Tell me about what I was like back then, or I remember this moment. Do you remember that too? What did you think about that? And you can start to realize, like I realized with my sister, we have very different perspectives on the same events that we both went through. That's helpful. That's helpful to know how she was interpreting compared to how I was. You can look at old photo albums. You can watch old home videos. I've done that. It's been incredibly rich and helpful to be like, oh my gosh, now I see these videos and I'm listening to who I was and what I was like back then. Incredibly helpful. To summarize all this, anytime you're feeling lost, or anytime you're wondering if the path that you're on is the good path, the right path, anytime you're working with somebody and they're not sure what to do next, anytime you feel a sense of regret or doom or gloom or anxiety about where you're going, reflecting and looking backwards is a critical piece. And being able to answer that question, where have you come from and how has it shaped you, will help you develop and build the pillars of a meaningful life so that you can live the life that you want. If you would like, we are sharing this episode free. If you'd like to have a reflection guide and a worksheet to start working through your backstory, you could sign up if you haven't already to get access every week to content, not just these episodes, but also the reflection guide and worksheet to process through these critical questions. So next week, we'll have a guest on and help them process their backstory. And you can watch and listen, which will help you understand yours. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of the YouSchool podcast.